I've been putting this manga off for so long, and for good reason, mind you. I'm already depressed enough as it is, but it's time for me to pick this manga up and go through the journey a lot of you have been through already. The masterpiece of Kentaro Miura that first started publishing in 1999 until his passing, which shook people down to their cores. Even if they weren't fans of the manga or the anime, because that's just how big and influential Berserk was and is to this day. I know almost nothing about the story aside from a few panels of Sid floating around without context, and I haven't watched the anime. This is my first impression and thoughts on one of the most beloved and influential mangas ever, Berserk. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the first 8 chapters. Yes, the first 8 chapters, because from what I've seen, the first 8 chapters are called the Black Swordsman arc, and so this video is all about this arc and my first impressions and thoughts on it. 8 chapters. It's only 8 chapters, and I don't know where to start. So, let's start from the very beginning. I want your full attention. So here's the main character fucking someone in the middle of the woods that turns into a nightmare field. Are you intrigued? Good. These women and children are being transported somewhere, not a panel wasted. This will come into play later. Character introduction. Puck, my sweetheart. It's time for Guts' introduction now, isn't it? The Black Swordsman is here. Remember the women and children? They were sacrifices made by this old fuck to save his own skin. Are you paying attention? Focus, or you will miss something. This is how I felt when I was reading these panels. It was like Kentaro Miura was whispering into my ears to not get my eyes off the panels for even a second and take in everything, or I will miss every little detail that he put into it. I have my own ideas on what these details and foreshadowings mean. Little hints, little nods, and little peeks into Guts, into this world, the past, present, and the future. You may think I'm overreacting, but this is how I looked at it. Signs of PTSD, mental issues, missed up character backstory, it's all there. You just have to pay attention. We're at the half point of chapter 1, mind you, and there's this much detail and little hints about the main character and his backstory. I thought of it as the perfect first chapter, as Kentaro Miura's way of saying, I've given you looks at my skills, I've given you some story threads, and a look at the world of the story. I have your full attention now, right? Keep reading. I'm not going to tell you a single thing. I'm just going to show you. What you know about Guts is not even scratching the surface level of his character, and I'm going to pound that fact into your head for a whole chapter. You've looked at Guts from afar thus far. How about we get a little closer? You've seen the badass that doesn't care about anything and anyone Guts, but doesn't it look like a mask to you? Well, it does to me. Him refusing help from these 2 nice people with death flags all over them.
Huge death flags. Huge death.
Not once or twice, but 3 times, and finally convincing himself that their lives are not his concern is the first clue. It feels like he's lying to himself, like he's faking his persona. We get little looks at his way of thinking about life and death and get the question, how did he become like this? And right as we're wondering about that, Kentaro Miura throws us a small ball. There is no context as to what is this or why is he so afraid of it, but we can tell it is a deep scar in his mind and heart as he's desperately trying to run away from it, as they tell him time and time again that he can't escape. An obvious death flag leads to a quick death, and guess what? He doesn't look like your death wasn't his concern. And seriously, Would a person that doesn't care about anything start vomiting out of disgust of killing a child? His old mental wounds reopening, I guess, because this looks like an enraged, wounded animal. And by the end of it all, these words that were trying to comfort him broke him into what I would assume is a pain-filled laughter, as he started to justify their death, that it's not his fault that these ants are getting squashed under his feet. It looks like he's lying to himself, because this is the face of a man with a borderline broken mental state. The moral of the story is dark. Water is wet. Everyone that has heard about Berserk knows it, and yet it's a different feeling when you're actually reading it and are immersed, like the monster that is the Count. Its acts are horrifyingly disgusting, and that's just how it is. The world of Berserk is like that. It doesn't feel like it's happening just to shock the reader. It's there because that's what happens in this world. Death, disease, monsters in human skin, and humans that are just as evil as them. Tragedy is like oxygen in this world. It's everywhere. You can't go a few panels without something to stop happening. In the middle of a battle, after Guts' declaration of war against the Count, someone saves Guts and Puck. Wargus. Pitiable Wargus, and the imagery that comes with his backstory is that of nightmares. Wargus is in possession of this thing, the key to another hell-like dimension, but we'll come back to that later. A lot of the stories that I've read and watched are one-dimensional, but it looks like in Berserk, nothing is simple. And Guts feeling disgust at Wargus and antagonizing him is proof of that. Because Guts' internal struggle and fake personality led him to doing all the stuff that he did. And at the end of it, it led to Wargus' death, which has a heavy mental toll on him. Even this monster still has the tiniest amount of humanity in him. Flaws in humans and monsters alike. Nothing is one note. Him still caring about his daughter to the point of caging her in a room was a surprise for me because I didn't expect to get any other information about the antagonist. How wrong was I? We're given some backstory about the Count from his daughter, nothing too specific, enough to paint a big picture. Now we're seeing the situation from her point of view, and we will experience the later revelations with her. Honestly, I'm afraid of some fanatics jumping me after I say this, but I'm just going to tell it how I think it. I feel like the battles lack flow. The art style is amazing, yes. There is weight, but very little flow. How do I describe it? You know when you're reading a manga and you can imagine and feel the characters moving? It's like there's a flow in the panels. But I can't get that same feeling in these battles. They feel heavy, like you can feel the sword's impact, but I can't feel the movement of the sword or the enemies. But hey, it's only the first few chapters, or it's just me, I don't know. Or it could be that the focus of this arc just isn't on the battles, and if so, I would love it even more, because even though I'm a sucker for badass battles, I'm also someone that just loves to see those scenes with nothing but dialogue that captivates the audience, like these peacock feather scenes from Westworld.
I read a theory once that the human intellect was like peacock feathers, just an extravagant display intended to attract a mate. All of art, literature, Beethoven, Mozart, William Shakespeare, Michelangelo, and the Empire State Building. Just an elaborate mating ritual.
This is what I have so far. Pain.
See the smile? He looks wholesome, right? He's probably a slice of life manga or something.
Right?
This is the climax of the arc, and I feel like an 80-year-old that had a match against Prime Mike Tyson. The story beats were relentless and words pulling punches. This is the first arc, bro. I'm scared. One thing after another, the Count's daughter seeing him in his monster form. Guts using the last tiny bit of humanity the Count had against him by taking his daughter as a hostage. the rage inside of him tearing the Count into pieces, and the Count's strong desire not to die that made this thing react and send them into the other dimension where we meet the God Hands. No, not that. You thought you're getting some breathing room, right? Nope. One of the God Hands reveals what actually happened between the Count and his wife. The choice given to Count to sacrifice his daughter just like how he did his wife to not die, and how the Count, even though facing a literal hell, which has been drawn hauntingly beautiful, loved his daughter so much that he couldn't do it, and was taken away to that hell by the souls being tormented in it. And Wargos was there, at the front of the line, taking him away, while he is extending his hand for his daughter. This is extremely symbolic and poetic and fucked up. How Wargos took him away from his family like the Count did to Wargos, and even though she knew everything now, extended her hand for her father, unlike the time she ran away when he extended his arm in his monster form. And we found out that the brand on Guts is a brand given to the people that were sacrificed, and how Griffith was the one to do it to him, I believe, and the one you have to sacrifice has to be someone dear to you, so there should be a really fucked up backstory between these two. It's a never-ending ripple of emotion and I can't put it into words. The rage Guts felt towards Griffith, or how the Count's daughter couldn't accept reality, so Guts gave her a reason to live, and how she hung on to the sword for her life despite of the pain. Exactly like how she has to do from now. How Guts directed her emotions to anger and himself to give her a goal for living. And at the end of it, the face of a man. Broken. In tears. The true state of Guts. It's beautifully tragic, and I thought of it as the true face behind the fake persona I was using. And that's a wrap for the Black Swordsman arc. This was 8 chapters, and I am physically, mentally, and emotionally drained. So I wrote this whole script right after reading, so it's safe to say that I was pretty much immersed and loving the experience. And honestly, I can't say a lot of negative things from what I've read so far. And the reasoning, aside from the potential diehard fans going, there really isn't too much that I have to say, because aside from the flow thing, the only thing that I can say is that the art quality changing was jarring sometimes. Like, I had the most jarring experience right at the start, where you start with these crazy looking panels and then you go to this and you're like, is this right? That PS1 polygon count looking castle was really jarring, or Guts sometimes being like, oh fucking hell, that's cool too.
Oh my god, what's wrong with your face?
But aside from the things that I said right now, I have to say that holy shit, this was one of the most heavy atmosphere, immersive and engaging reading sessions I've had. And that's why this whole video is scripted the way it is, because you know, I just read something cool, so I want to write the script to sound cool and try my best to convey how I was feeling when I was reading through the script and editing. And most of the time, I'm reading stuff with mostly a poker face, looking like a corpse that's been there for the past 2 weeks, but this time I was yelling at the panels like they're going to hear me. Something that only a few pieces of media have made me do, and that's the connection of me the reader to Kentaro Miura's world. Something truly unique that gripped me and got past my short attention span. And that's why I'm going to put timeless and classic on the thumbnail. Because to me, a timeless piece, a classic, is something you feel like isn't a product of the past. Doesn't feel outdated, and hell, if you showed this to someone that isn't in the know, they wouldn't guess this was made like 2 decades ago. I can't stress this enough that I loved what I read so far, but I'm really scared for what's about to come. So yeah, Berserk was pretty cool.